Tonight on Bridge City News, residents in North Lethbridge gathered and shared their concerns about crime in their area. RCMP and Manitoba say they now have evidence that the two BC teens wanted in a Canada-wide manhunt shot themselves. And if you have peanut allergies, good news! There's a seed which is being used as a peanut alternative which may be even healthier than peanuts.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening, thanks so much for joining us. A Lethbridge Facebook group called Take Back Our Community has gained popularity. The group began as a number of concerned residents on the north side of town, but now has members all over southern Alberta. Ainsley O'Reilly explains what impact this group is having in our city.
What started as a group of citizens concerned about crime on the north end of town has turned into a community with eyes all over Lethbridge and beyond.
We have Colhurst and Coaldale here tonight. Beautiful, beautiful. Any other, do we have a West Sider here by any chance? And we have West Side, wow.
Our vision was to create a safe community and environment for all of our children so that they're not vulnerable to getting pricked by needles, so that our neighbors know each other when suspicious people are in and out of our backyards, and our vision was to just collectively come together.
The meetings have continued to grow with various partners including Lethbridge Christian Tabernacle Church and bikers building bridges.
Lethbridge is one community and we all need to work together. So it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from Lethbridge, you're from Lethbridge. Everybody should help each other, whether you're from the north side, south side, or the west side, doesn't matter.
We are going to continue to collaborate for safety in our community, for the wellness of our children, for the wellness of service users who are also affected by this every single day. So this is a community initiative to just invite everyone else to come, no matter what your stance is. Maybe your area hasn't been affected by crime, but come and listen to those who have been. Because there's a lot of us who have had many personal items stolen, businesses have been affected, and we just need to come together to say enough is enough.
Lethbridge police are aware of groups like Take Back Our Community and say they're open to connecting.
We definitely do want to connect with our community. We have a community engagement unit that would definitely want to be part of that and connect with all those, including Neighborhood Watch or whatever community groups are trying to solve problems within our city. We want to be part of it. It's definitely part of our business plan as well.
City Councillor Blaine Higgin will be taking his concerns to City Council on Monday. He has proposed a motion that Arches, the supervised consumption site, does not let needles leave the facility. He's also proposed a motion that Arches is shut down until the UCP government does a further review on all supervised consumption sites in the province. There will be a peaceful protest on Monday organized by the Lethbridge Citizens Alliance. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
A woman who worked for Lethbridge County has been charged with stealing around $49,000 from the county. As an employee, 40-year-old Brandy Leanne Doucette was charged with fraud over $5,000, possession of the proceeds of crime over $5,000, and altering documents. The thefts occurred between 2016 and this year. The Economic Crimes Unit of the Lethbridge Police Service says that there are many ways for people to cover up these crimes for a lengthy period of time.
I think that there's an attempt to hide these things, and often when we do see the employee stealing from an employer, typically there's a lot of deception involved. So there's fabrication of documents, you're going to manipulate the computer systems, you're going to do whatever you need to do probably to cover your trail, cover the path, and try to continue to be successful in the theft. Most of the theft is cash. And a lot of it is payment from county residents for different services and fees, and some of it is, in fact, tax dollars.
In a press release today, a spokesperson with Lethbridge County says they assure citizens that although funds were misappropriated, no individual accounts were affected. Lethbridge County will implement additional controls to mitigate any future risk. RCMP say autopsies on two bodies found in northern Manitoba last week have confirmed their belief that they were the remains of the two teenagers wanted for murder in British Columbia. Police say Briar Smigelski and Cam McLeod shot themselves. It appears as though they were dead for a number of days before their bodies were discovered last Wednesday near the town of Gillam. Two firearms were located near the dead men, and police say an analysis was being done to connect the weapons with the homicides in northern BC. The BC Prosecution Service says criminal charges don't move forward once an accused is proven dead. Alert's Lethbridge organized crime and gang team made a significant drug bust. Police seized fentanyl pills and powder worth close to $118,000 following a 3-month drug investigation. The bust occurred at a traffic stop and at a home in Colehurst last Thursday. 25-year-old Herman Dami is charged with possession and drug trafficking. Alert's organized crime team in Edmonton also made a bust. More than $560,000 worth of drugs, cash and guns were seized at 2 Edmonton homes. More than $166,000 worth of cash was seized, along with 2.4 kilograms of cocaine, 1 kg of meth and 4 kilograms of dried cannabis. 2 people were also arrested and charged with a wide range of offenses, including drug trafficking. 32-year-old Cody Hilton and 53-year-old Connie Liu have both been charged with a total of 40 criminal offenses. Canada's police chiefs are gathering in Calgary this week. They plan to discuss bullying and harassment in the workplace. The RCMP recently settled class action lawsuits to compensate for discrimination, bullying, and harassment of female employees over the past 45 years. Similar concerns have been expressed by female officers in Calgary, prompting a review of that force's human resources system. While the police chiefs are in Calgary, they're getting a close look at the latest crime-fighting tools at a trade show. It features over 150 exhibits promoting armored vehicles, body armor, firearms, and tasers.
We offer taser weapons for the police officers as well as body camera solutions. We have in-car camera solutions, interview room solutions, and also the software that manages all the back end of the solutions that our officers need. A lot of what we're seeing in Canadian policing, it's not about the transparency and the accountability conversation, but it's really about best evidence collection for faster trials because of a lot of the administrative time that's going into police work nowadays with the court cases and things. So what we're seeing in Canada specifically is the move away from the narrative around transparency and accountability, but really towards best evidence collection for faster trials and faster prosecutions.
A Colehurst woman discovered a hidden talent in the midst of battling cancer. BCN's Loris Alexander spoke with a survivor about her art therapy.
I was actually pregnant with my second child, and I went in for a prenatal exam, and he did a breast exam and found a lump, sent me in for tests, and discovered I had breast cancer.
That was 2 years ago. Mulder is now cancer-free and isn't just surviving, she's thriving. A stark contrast to what life was like when she first got the unwelcome news.
At first, we really didn't process it at all. It's really hard to, I guess, wrap your mind around that. But not good. Lots of tears. Yeah, lots of anger.
Mulder was 13 weeks pregnant when she had a miscarriage 2 days prior to her scheduled mastectomy.
I think it would have had a lot to do with the stress, but also my body probably wasn't strong enough to be able to carry a child.
But the light at the end of the tunnel brought Mulder to, let's just say, mountainous success.
I've always been kind of creative and I really like painting. And then I was scrolling through Pinterest and I found these mountain pictures that I thought were absolutely beautiful. And since I'm from the mountains and love wildlife and stuff, I decided I wanted to give it a go. So called my dad, asked him how hard they would be, and set me up with a few things and showed me how to do it, and off I went.
Mulder says her newfound business keeps her very busy. For more information, please visit mountainsidestudio.ca. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
You know, it's the time of year that many kids hate to think about, but parents might not mind. Back to school season is just around the corner. That also means the added stress of putting together healthy lunches every day, particularly in nut-free school zones. One nutritionist has a solution to the nut-free issue. It is called Baru seed. It tastes just like a peanut, but is apparently 10 times healthier.
They are actually a super nutrient-dense legume that's grown wild in the Cerrado, in the tropical savanna of Brazil. But they are actually a legume, which makes them completely nut-free. And what's great about them is that, you know, compared to almonds and walnuts, they are richer in plant-based protein. So we're looking at, you know, a seed that is rich in protein, extremely high in antioxidants, and it contains great omega-3s and 6s, along with fiber, It's great as just a snacking item. You can add it to trail mixes like dry fruits, but you can also take these baru seeds, mill it, and create powder so you can make cookies and bread out of it. You can also turn it into a delicious baru seed butter. So it's very versatile how you use it.
Baru seeds are available through most health food stores. Thanks to all of the moisture we've received lately, the city of Lethbridge lifted the fire ban for the River Valley. They still caution residents, however, to ensure the fire is completely out before you leave and to be extra cautious when disposing of smoking materials. The damage to the Sea to Sky gondola in Squamish, BC could be millions of dollars for what police say appears to be a deliberate act of destruction. Police believe someone may have cut the gondola cable at the tourist attraction, sending many unoccupied cabins plummeting to the ground on Saturday. Close to 20 of the 30 gondola cabins and main cable will need replacing. City officials are unsure how long the Sea to Sky gondola will be shut down. The main themes so far during the Manitoba election campaign have been trust, taxes, and health care. PC leader Brian Pallister says his party can be trusted to keep taxes in line after following through on a promised sales tax cut earlier this year.
A guarantee for increasing important strategic health care investment. A guarantee for building new schools, a guarantee for creating even more jobs, a guarantee for a Made in Manitoba green plan, not an NDP Liberal rising carbon tax.
NDP leader Wab Kinew says the Tories have hurt health care and the NDP would reinstate 2 of the 3 Winnipeg hospital emergency rooms the government downgraded. Liberal leader Dougald Lamont, meanwhile, says both the Tory and NDP governments have failed to properly address social assistance and health care. Voting day is slated for September the 10th. Close to 800 head of cattle have been killed in a fire that destroyed a large dairy complex in southeastern Manitoba. Officials say 200 head survived the overnight blaze at Penwood Dairy, located northeast of Steinbach. They say people were also in the barn at the time of the fire, but everyone got out safely. Fire officials are investigating what caused the blaze. Early indications say that it started at one of the 4 metal-clad buildings that were linked to each other. The fire came as the dairy farm was preparing to expand its herd to 1,700 cattle. Money is on the way to help with flood mapping for 20 at-risk communities in Saskatchewan. The provincial and federal governments announced a $1 million boost to be split evenly between Saskatchewan and Ottawa. Melfort, Moose Jaw, Regina, and Saskatoon are among the communities expected to receive modern flooding maps and hydraulic modeling. Flood mapping identifies areas of risk of flooding from nearby rivers, lakes, and streams, including those impacted by developments. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Ottawa will spend $26 million this year on refugee and immigration legal aid services in Ontario after the province cut funding.
The responsibility over legal aid on immigration and refugees has long been a joint responsibility, a shared responsibility by the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. And for many years, the Government of Ontario was a strong and proud partner in making sure that our most vulnerable refugees had the basic services they need, particularly in terms of legal aid when they arrive in a situation that is fraught with challenges and indeed vulnerabilities. But the Ford government decided to step away from that. And that's why, in this area of shared responsibility, the federal government is choosing to step up.
There are many questions surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein, the alleged sex trafficker who apparently died of a suicide at a federal jail in New York. Recent reports say there were shouting and shrieking coming from his jail cell the morning he died. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says Epstein was connected to a lot of big names.
This man was had access to and was privy to many secrets, a lot of access, a lot of influence, a lot of political life here in the United States. And what did he know? What secrets was he carrying? What would have come to light had he been able to tell his story?
Catch the full interview with Lisa discussing the Epstein case and another mosque shooting, but this one taking place in Norway. That's coming up in the second half of our show. A knife-wielding man with a history of mental illness is suspected of slaying a woman in downtown Sydney, Australia, before wounding another woman and attempting to stab others. He was eventually restrained by men using a milk crate and chairs. Now here's the dramatic footage and a caution, what you're about to see may be disturbing to some viewers.
Oh, God! Why not? Fuck! I got fucking right. many people you just stabbed, you dog? Huh? Stop. I'm gonna kill you right now. Stop. All right. Stop. You're a piece of wait for the cops. Come on, give me a phone. You stabbed the chick, mate. You go.
Hong Kong's airport cancelled all remaining departing flights for the second straight day after protesters took over the terminals. The Transport Authority advised passengers not to come to the airport. Some flights were able to depart and land earlier today, a day after more than 200 flights were cancelled. The arrival and departure halls were blocked by thousands of protesters who were gathered for a fifth straight day. They're calling for democratic reforms and an independent inquiry into alleged police brutality. The world's population is closing in on 8 billion people. Now, there's some who say we should only have 1 to 2 children, and many pro-choice advocates say abortion is the answer. Dr. Calvin Beisner of the Cornwall Alliance recently wrote a book on the world's population called Prospects for Growth. He says abortion is not the answer.
Abortion, frankly, has removed millions of people from our populations who otherwise would be productive workers, paying taxes, paying in the United States into our social security system. And frankly, we've lost hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars in tax revenues to the American government, likewise in Canada, but on a proportional scale in terms of population.
Catch the full interview with Dr. Beisner discussing overpopulation issues and if the Earth can be self-sustaining. That's coming up after business news. Another cooler and cloudy day with some light showers in the city. Will the rain continue? I'll have weather details coming up shortly. We had a bit of a mixed bag today. Sunshine, clouds, and isolated showers. Tonight clearing with a low near 7 degrees. A slight chance of thunder showers tomorrow with a high expected near 25. Mainly sunny on Thursday with a high of 26. A low pressure system returns on Friday, bringing more clouds, rain, and the mercury will drop to 18. Not a bad weekend is shaping up. 21 and cloudy on Saturday, mainly sunny and 26 for both Sunday and Monday. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 and an average low of 11. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 2001 at 36 degrees, and the record low was 2 in 2005. Sunrise was at 6:18, sunset at 8:54. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. It should be mainly sunny and 23 in Victoria, just a few clouds at 24 for Vancouver. A slight chance of thunder showers at 23 degrees for Calgary on Wednesday. A slight chance of showers at 24 for Edmonton. A mixture of sun and cloud at 25 degrees for Regina tomorrow. Just a couple of degrees cooler in Saskatoon. Mainly cloudy and 25 for Winnipeg. Clouds at 24 for Toronto on Wednesday. Mainly cloudy at 23 for Ottawa. Lots of sunshine at 26 degrees on tap for Montreal. In the Maritimes, expect a mixture of sun and cloud at 24 degrees in Fredericton. Light showers at 25 for Halifax. Charlottetown will be mainly cloudy at 23. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, you can expect light rain and a high near 21 degrees tomorrow. Stocks in the United States are soaring on news that the Trump administration is delaying tariffs on Chinese imports, including cell phones, laptops, and video games. The 10% tariffs were set to take effect on September 1st, but Washington says they've been pushed back to mid-December. Certain toys, footwear, and clothing are also included in the extension, while other items have been removed from the target list based on health, safety, and national security concerns. The news today pushed the Dow Jones Industrial Average up nearly 340 points in trading earlier today. The Canadian Pork Council has released a list of priorities for the federal election. The council says producers are asking the feds to address 4 African swine fever priorities, which are prevention, preparation, response, and recovery. The council also wants Ottawa to establish a Canadian Pork Promotion Research Agency and deliver effective business risk management programming. It says hog producers also want the government to maintain competitive markets and further develop trade with Asian nations. The Federal Court of Appeal has dismissed a legal challenge by former Air Canada pilots who claim the company was wrong to force some to retire at the age of 60. The dismissal of an appeal by 18 ex-pilots stems from a human rights ruling that the airline had the right to compel some pilots to retire at an age it deemed to be the industry standard. Pilots let go in 2011 and 2012 argued unsuccessfully that Air Canada discriminated against them by entering into a collective agreement that imposed mandatory retirement. Verizon is selling Tumblr, a darling of early social media, to Automatic, which is the owner of blogging platform WordPress. Tumblr is known for its devoted fan base and has been the target of angry posts from celebrities like Taylor Swift. The social media platform says many users ditched it last year after it decided to ban pornography. Verizon got Tumblr through its 2017 purchase of Yahoo. Yahoo bought it in 2013 for $1.1 billion, but ended up writing off much of its value. Terms of the latest deal were not disclosed. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, a 40-year-old Lethbridge woman has been charged in connection with an internal theft from Lethbridge County. Police say Brandy Leanne Doucette stole around $49,000 from the county office between 2016 and this year. Some of the money included tax payments. Doucette was fired from her job and will appear in court to answer to the charges of theft on August 27th. There was another mosque shooting, but this one taking place in Norway. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari has details next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Backstreet West's 4th Annual Car and Bike Show is taking place on August 17th at Backstreet Pub West, with all proceeds going to the Lethbridge Food Bank. All makes, models, and ages of vehicles are eligible. Those interested in participating can pre-register by calling Backstreet Pub West at 403-380-2811. The show will go from 1 to 4 p.m. There are a number of categories for participants to qualify to win, including the People's Choice Award. All are encouraged to bring non-perishable food items or cash donations in exchange for voting ballots. The Helen Schuler Nature Center is offering Extreme by Nature for ages 11 to 15 on Friday, August 16th from 10 a.m. to noon. Kids will learn how scientific tools and techniques can help them in exploring the river valley. For more information and to register, call the Nature Center at 403-320-3064. Southern Alberta Men's Ministry is hosting a barbecue and games day for men in the Lethbridge area on Saturday, August 24th at the John Martin Picnic Area in Pavan Park, beginning at 4 p.m. Enjoy an afternoon of hilarious fun and delicious food. Then, hear an inspiring message from Jerry Pullman. Tickets are 2 for $10. Buy one for yourself and a friend. For more information and tickets, contact Leslie at 403-327-4422 and follow Southern Alberta Men's Ministry on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The investigations into the death of Jeffrey Epstein continue. Epstein, who was set to stand trial on sex trafficking and conspiracy charges, apparently killed himself in a jail cell in New York. He was accused of running a vast network of underage girls for sex, and he pleaded not guilty last month. Joining me now via Skype from Los Angeles is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, some say the 66-year-old Epstein did not actually commit suicide because he was on suicide watch, but it was more to do with his connections with U.S. President Donald Trump and the Clintons. There's a bit of a conspiracy here. What do you say?
Absolutely. No matter how you look at this, there is more to the story that is not being reported, and it leaves many to have questions beyond what we're being told. And it's not just who he was. I mean, you know, I do foreign affairs, and you and I are discussing this because this man was had access to and was privy to many secrets, a lot of access, a lot of influence, a lot of political life here in the United States. And what did he know? What secrets was he carrying? What would have come to light had he been able to tell his story? So that's obviously the questions that are on everyone's minds. But even on the surface, let's look at him as a simple man who attempted suicide not too long ago. Why wasn't he being watched? How did this happen? Do these lapses happen often, or do we not hear about them because they're not high-profile cases? But this is a severe lapse in our justice system. If he attempted suicide not too long ago, he should be on suicide watch. Now, will we ever get the answers? Who knows? You know, the person who's carrying those answers is not alive to tell them. So again, you know, investigation on investigation on investigation will continue, but will the American people get the answers that they're looking for is yet to be determined.
Sadly, another mosque shooting, this one occurring in Norway. Police say a woman was found dead at the home of the suspect. Now, according to a recent news report, the Norway attack suspect was inspired by the Christchurch, New Zealand, and the El Paso, Texas attacks, Lisa.
Yes, so this individual, sick individual, was obviously motivated by racism and other isms that aren't even worth mentioning right now. But luckily, the silver lining to this is that there were only 3 people in the mosque, and 2 of the men were able to overwhelm this shooter and, you know, take him down before anyone was hurt in the mosque itself. But it's a warning, obviously, that, you know, this ideology, this idea that if you don't like a certain sect of people, you can just take arms and walk into a synagogue or a church or a mosque and take actions into your own hands. You know, this makes it very difficult to live a normal life, to go to the mall, to a sports event, to Walmart, to your place of worship, to your school, without feeling like somebody who doesn't like you or who's having a bad day will take arms and walk into that place. You know, we've had the same or similar to the core of our gun laws for many decades, but it's never been like this. So there are many questions here. Why have things changed? Why are people behaving this way? Why is it being publicized this way? Is it because of social media that people are allowed to have a manifesto and spread their, you know, terrible, sick ideology before they commit these kinds of heinous crimes? Lots of questions to ask ourselves as a society, you know, as to why this is happening in the United States so often, and how we can stop it.
And what's really sad is how many shooters say they were inspired by other shooters. You know, that's sick in itself, right? Lisa, 14 people were injured outside of a holy site in Jerusalem, including police. Medics say 4 police officers were wounded in the skirmishes at a place the Jews refer to as the Temple Mount. This is the worst bout of fighting at the contested holy site in months.
Yes, well, it doesn't say much because every few months we do see something like this flare up. And what's unfortunate is that this round has been kind of like a 2 or 3 on the scale of intensity, nothing like what we had in 2014 or 2006. But at the same time, it hasn't died down. We had a young boy who was killed, murdered by Palestinians a week or so ago, about 18 years old. I had read a report that this was the same day that his grandfather was murdered by Palestinians about 10 years ago. 6 stories coming out of the Middle East and of course, this country of Israel, where there is no peace and there hasn't been any peace. And how coincidental that this falls simultaneously around the same time that Jared Kushner and the White House are traveling throughout the Middle East in order to announce a peace plan that would be perhaps a solution for peace between the Palestinians and Israelis. This is it's obviously going to fall on deaf ears, and I hate to be the pessimist about this, but look at our headlines day in and day out. They can't stop the fighting. They can't stop the indoctrination. You know, when Palestinian kids are raised with math books that say, if I kill 2 Jews today and 2 tomorrow, how many have I killed? They don't have a future, and that is really on the hands of their leadership, Hamas. When you're being led by a terror organization, you don't have much of a chance of a bright future, of a hopeful future. So this is business as usual, unfortunately, in that part of the world.
Lisa, the president of Afghanistan says his country's fate cannot be decided by friends, neighbors, or enemies. Ashraf Ghani said he does not want anyone intervening in their affairs. His remarks come amid ongoing peace talks between the United States and Taliban forces without the Afghan government being at the table.
Right. You know, it's just comical at this point, and it's not comical. We don't want to make light of the fact that so many people are being killed every single day by the Taliban, the same group that the United States is trying to cut a deal with in order to secure the future of the Afghani people. You know, just today there were reports that there may be kind of a deadline if they can't come to terms or, you know, find a way to you know, have a resolution with the Taliban, which it doesn't look. In the midst of this talk about a truce or a resolution going forward, 14 more Afghanis were killed today by the Taliban. So they're not painting a bright outlook for themselves.
A fragile truce in Yemen after separatist soldiers stormed and captured the presidential palace. The seizure exposed a rift within Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates coalition.
You know, when stories like this come out, it becomes more and more apparent that no group, no external group is in Yemen for the sake of Yemen, but this is a proxy war that would be fought on their own land instead. So when you have the Saudis up against the UAE, you'd think, okay, well, they're both there in order to do two things: curb the Iranian influence from growing, that's the Houthi influence, and to perhaps bring some sort of semblance to and stability to Yemen, a country that has not been able to get any. The pictures coming out of Yemen right now are horrific. You know, you see the children in famine with their bones sticking out, and very, very, very hard to see and watch these videos coming out. But at the same time, when you see those who are there and almost entrusted with this, you know, wanting to help the Yemeni people, but are really fighting each other, it kind of takes us to what the UN said, just hands off. And it's not like me to quote the UN, especially in matters of foreign affairs. But, you know, it's going to be a long time before we see any real nation building over there. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, defending different parts. Right now, the Saudis want the ousted leader back in. The UAE says, no, we're in charge now. They're running the separatists, and the Houthis, of course, being backed by the Iranian regime. Lots of different layers, lots of different influences, and no end in sight.
No easy answers, that's right. India is promising to ease its Kashmir curfew as Pakistan is accusing the New Delhi government of ethnic cleansing. Now, the Kashmir tensions have even spilled over into Indian and Pakistani communities in Great Britain, Lisa.
Yes, this is something that it's a hot topic. It always has been. You know, we don't talk about it here in the West, but this has been the point of contention between the Indians and Pakistanis. And we've always known that they've been rivals, but we haven't really talked about why. This is one of the reasons. I mean, land disputes and control over this area. Now, India wanting to, you know, soak up as much influence and power as possible over the Kashmiris, who have wanted to shake off this Indian power for a very long time, and the Pakistanis just trying to do the opposite, trying to call out the Indians on this amount of control and power that they are trying to exert over the Kashmiris. So this is going to be a long time coming. In the meantime, they've cut power and access and the internet, and there's a curfew in place, and these are on and off based on what the Indian government feels is a threat. They want to kind of control the people. They want to, you know, kind of tame them, simmer down the protests, etc. So that's where we're at.
North Korea is back in the news once again as Kim Jong-un was overseeing a new weapons system. The report came as U.S. President Trump said he would meet again soon with Kim to discuss denuclearization.
Yeah. You know, more chest thumping from North Korea. You know, we tested that missile. We're still here. You know, and just last week they were reminded by the United States, wait a minute, we agreed to X, Y, and Z, and now what are you saying? You know, this is what happens when you're dealing with a rogue dictator. No one said it was going to be easy, Donald Trump. No one said it was going to be easy. We said it was historic when Donald Trump met with him for the first time. There was a second time. There were letters exchanged. They became excellent pen pals. And now more of the same. Every couple of days, we talk about different missiles being tested by the North Korean regime. You know, I think that this is similar to what we're seeing in China. We're at a point where there are certain facts or factors, I should say, that the two sides cannot agree on. So what does Kim Jong-un do? He flexes his muscles and say, look, I'm not you know, at your mercy, and I won't agree to X, Y, and Z, and I will come to the table, but I want you to know that I'm also flexing my muscles. It's very similar to the what we have with China. But, you know, for Donald Trump's sake and his foreign policy record, you know, one of these issues has to have a clear resolution by the time his reelection is up. And I say that because this is being reported regularly. And, you know, if it's something that's not resolved, it will look as though it was a foreign policy failure, only because we've almost woken up the beast rather than just had him off to the side.
Now, this next story, I couldn't believe when I was reading it. I thought maybe I was reading The Onion or something, some fake news. Brazil's President Bolsonaro says in order to protect the environment, people should eat less and therefore defecate or poop less. He's actually saying this here.
Yeah, is that Bolsonaro or is that AOC? You know, it's a very, very, very funny headline. When you look at the details of his plan, it's all about consumption and the planet, right? So if you eat less, you defecate less, and therefore you're using fewer resources across the board, right? So food for thought, no pun intended. But you know, you look at these crazy headlines coming from leaders all over the world, including right here with our Democrat candidates for 2020. You know, the environment is obviously very important, but you know how we tackle it. These are some very unique and creative ideas. I'll leave it at that.
No kidding, that's right. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
The ongoing debate over climate change has a lot of environmental groups calling for a decrease in global population in order to save the planet. Joining me now via Skype from Memphis, Tennessee is Dr. Calvin Beisner, national spokesperson for the Cornwall Alliance. It's a group made up of natural scientists, economists, and theologians. And he's also author of the book, Prospects for Growth, a Biblical View of Population Resources and the Future. Dr. Beisner, welcome back to BCN.
Great, thanks very much. Good to be back with you.
Now, it's interesting that Prince Harry recently announced in an interview that he's only having a maximum of 2 children out of concern for the environment. Can you explain why there's such a fear right now of overpopulation?
Well, at the moment, the fear seems to be connected primarily with fears of dangerous man-made global warming. And if global warming is man-made and dangerous, obviously, the more people there are, the more of it you're going to get, right? But of course, the fears of overpopulation are not by any means new. They go back not just a couple centuries, but thousands of years.
Wow, tell me more about that.
Well, you can start, for instance, with Abraham and Lot in the book of Genesis, who were concerned because they didn't think that the land on which they lived could support both their families and their livestock. So they decided, we'll separate. Abraham told Lot, you look to whatever direction you want, whichever way you go, you can have that land, I'll take what's left. Lot chose the most fertile land. Abraham accepted what was left, not nearly so fertile, indicating that Abraham was really living by faith and Lot by fear. But today, of course, that very same land supports thousands of times as many people as Abraham and Lot and their families were. And the reason is that people can transform their environments and make those environments capable of supporting far more people than a lot of folks understand.
Well, here we are in the 21st century, so let me ask you, are we simply running out of resources?
Absolutely not. And the best way to know that is simply by tracking resource prices. You see, price is a measurement of scarcity. And as prices rise, they tell us that scarcity is increasing. As they fall, they tell us that scarcity is decreasing. Well, it happens to be the case that the long-term trend of the price of every single resource that we extract out of the earth, whether it's minerals or plants or animals, the long-term price trend is downward, which means that they're becoming less scarce over time, not more scarce. There is, however, one exception to that. That's people. Even though we have more and more people, their price is going up. Wages are rising, adjusted for inflation over the long haul, whereas the price of everything else is falling, adjusted for inflation over the long haul, and especially adjusted for wages, indexed against wages. So people, even while there are more and more of us, are getting more scarce, and everything else, even though there might be less and less of it, is getting less scarce. And that's because people are really good at making more and more out of less and less, finding new sources of different minerals and the like, and finding new ways to use them more efficiently.
So if it's okay to have more than 2 children, how do we change that mindset with a lot of people in society today?
That is a really great question, because as far as demographers are able to track, it appears to be absolutely, without exception, the case that as people become wealthier, as their societies move from, say, an agrarian society to early industrialization, to later industrialization, to a highly technical society, people choose to have fewer and fewer children. And it's fairly easy to understand why. In an agrarian society, a child becomes a net producer by about the age 5 or 6. In a high-tech society, most children don't become net producers. They continue to be net dependents on their parents until their late 20s, their early 30s. And more people say, well, why do I want to have 4 or 5 or 6 children when I'm going to have to pay for them for 30 years? The only thing, it seems to me, that's going to change that thinking is a major change in the whole understanding of the value of persons, of the value of human beings. And frankly, Christians taking seriously what God tells us in Psalm 127, children are a gift from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is his reward, not his punishment. Like arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are children in the days of one's youth. Happy is the man whose quiver is full of them. We really need Christian revival to reverse the trend that has it such that it's fairly sensible, fairly plausible that by the year 2300, total global population could be as little as 300 million people, because we're just not having enough children to replace us over the long haul.
Are the world's resources maybe limited when it comes to food and water, medicine and energy? Especially in many countries in Africa, will we find alternative resources?
Well, we can use 2 different senses of the term limited there. In the one sense, is the Earth infinite in size? No, of course not. It is finite in size. But in terms that make an actual difference as to our lives, how we actually practice our living, that sort of limitation is irrelevant. What's really relevant is our food resources, our other mineral resources, plants, animals, and the like, are resources limited in terms of our capacity to produce them. Resources are not natural. Resources are man-made. Oil didn't become a resource. It was basically a mess, a nuisance, until people figured out ways to transform it and make it useful. And now we make thousands of different products out of it, very helpful to human life. So resources are not limited in that sense, because human creativity, human ingenuity keeps finding ways to make more and more out of less and less. This is our exercise of the image of God in man. God is creative, we're creative too.
Some researchers say, Dr. Beisner, that we're losing farmland and that the remaining cropland is deteriorating. What does your research say?
Well, the actual long-term trend in terms of farmland is that it's getting to be better and better quality, because we're getting better and better methods of farming farmland. We're abandoning high-till methods that lead to a lot of erosion. We are replacing nutrients that we take out of the soil through the use of fertilizers and the like. All of these things are fairly consistent. The reality is that we're feeding far more people on far less land because of modern versions of farming. Well, that's great because it leaves more land left over for wildlife, for recreation, for all sorts of other uses.
Canada's certainly not overpopulated, but how can countries like where you are in the United States or like China and India sustain their populations?
Well, they're doing it very well. One thing that we have to recognize is that there is no statistical way to define overpopulation. We're told, for example, that sub-Saharan Africa is overpopulated, but sub-Saharan Africa's population density is somewhere around 60 people per square mile. You're never told that the Netherlands is overpopulated. Population density there is over 1,300 people per square mile. Why the difference? I have a strong hunch that it has to do an awful lot with the color of the skin. The overpopulation movement, the anti-population growth movement, really has its roots historically in the eugenics movement of the 19th century that came out of the work of first Thomas Robert Malthus in his essay on the principle of population in 1798, and then the work of Charles Darwin in terms of the competition of species for scarce resources, and his cousin, who wrote an important early work on eugenics that launched the eugenics movement. You can't define population, you can't define overpopulation by population density, by population growth rate, by population age distribution, or anything else like that. It all turns out to be rooted in people's perceptions of how good life is here or there or another place. Well, Manhattan's highly populated, very densely populated, but it's obviously a place that a lot of people want to live because that reflects in real estate prices there.
Now, do we actually have enough room on Earth for about 20 billion people to live on? I mean, we're approaching 8 billion now, or maybe should we even consider other planets?
Well, I won't touch the other planets issue. I think that's so far off into the future that Yogi Berra would be right, who said that it's really dangerous to make predictions, especially about the future. I think it's very clear that we have the technology even today, let alone the fact that technology is improving at just an amazing rate. But we have the technology even today to provide very healthful nutrition, housing, medical care, communication, transportation, everything else that people need for a population of 20 billion. But I don't think that we're headed there. It's far more likely that the world's population will peak at, I think, somewhere around, maybe 9 billion, around 2060 to 2070, and then it will begin to decline. And it will continue declining until people start deciding we'd rather have more children even though it costs a lot to raise them.
Some are advocating for abortion as a form of curbing population growth, but what has been the effect of abortion on our economy and national debt?
Well, abortion, frankly, has removed millions of people from our populations who otherwise would be productive workers, paying taxes, paying in the United States into our social security system. And frankly, we've lost hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars in tax revenues to the American government, likewise in Canada, but on a proportional scale in terms of population, because of abortion. It's a fabulous way to drive up national debt, especially in terms of social insurance policies, because social insurance consistently depends on current workers to pay the Social Security payments of retired workers. And if you're not replacing those current workers fast enough, they have a really tough time providing for the retired.
Do you think we can actually improve the environment while multiplying resources as the population increases?
Well, if history is any teacher at all on this, the answer's got to be yes. We've been improving the environment for a long, long time. Economists of the environment refer to something called the environmental Kuznets curve, or the environmental transition. That's the basic principle that in early industrialization, the emission of various different air and water and other pollutants rises significantly. And so you get smog and other such things. But the benefits of the industrial activity that emits those things so far outweigh the risks of the pollution that health and longevity, life expectancy, actually rise at the very same time that you've got the increasing pollution. But at various different economic levels, the people involved in those communities say, all right, now we can afford the more expensive technology that enables us to reduce those emissions. So what you have is a curve where emissions rise in early industrialization, then they peak, and then they fall. And because of that industrialization, you actually wind up with a cleaner environment than you had before the industrialization began.
So any final thoughts on what policies our Western government should change to protect the environment while at the same time boosting the economy?
Well, one of the most important policies that they can embrace is simply to celebrate private property. It's a real basic thing. You find graffiti on public bathroom walls, but not on your bathroom walls at home, because you have a private property incentive to take care of your bathroom walls at home. What everybody owns, and nobody takes care of. So private property is really a key to both environmental stewardship and economic growth and development. So we should be seeing more privatization of property, not less, by our governments. That would be, I think, one of the very first things to do.
Pride in ownership, absolutely. Dr. Calvin Beisner, author of the book Prospects for Growth, thanks a lot for joining me today on Bridge City News.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be back with you, and God bless.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.